Welcome to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, where world-changing spiritual entrepreneurs come to deeply awaken the power within to bring forth their greatest purpose, to create massive awakened impact for millions of souls around the planet, while enjoying being in tune with all life and real wealth in all aspects of their lives. I'm your host, Daniel John Hanneman. Hey, welcome everybody to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast Show. We've got an amazing guest. Oh my God, this person is amazing, and she's a super connected, intuitive, psychic medium. I don't even know if she'd use all these words. I don't even know. I just channel, remember? I'm just the channeler's channel, and so I just keep channeling, and I'll tell you who these people are for sure, like who I know them to be for 1,000,000%. She is super tuned in, and she's make a huge impact in the world with her gifts. And we carry these gifts, don't we? We have these gifts. The people are listening in, some of you are very aware of this. You have these gifts, you have these latent abilities that are inside of you that are over the lifetimes that you have, and yet they're buried. They've been covered over because, after all, you were burned at the stake or hung or whatever, you were suppressed. And so I think what's going to happen today is our guest is going to help you to really start to tap into that stuff, like in a way that's accessible just by her wisdom, like just to get it started, get that warmed up, and give you more information about all that, and to help you remember. So Jessenia, I'm just so grateful that you're here today, because I know it's all that and much more, but it just gave a little bit of the preview of what's going to unfold.
Excited to have the conversation.
Right. All right, so let's go ahead and share just a little bit about you with everybody. And so Jessenia is a multidimensional spiritual coach with the ability to see your Akashic Records. Akashic Records, of course, house, not everybody knows this, but house all past lives, your life plan, before incarnation, past, present, and future of this life. This allows Jessenia to the profound capacity to guide you through some of the most aggressive subconscious blocks for the best possible outcome in this life. Guided by spirit in alignment with your truth is always the best and most efficient way to find success here on Earth. Sounds good to me. Absolutely. Okay. All right. We had an amazing conversation. I know when we're talking about having on the show, and like I said, I somehow I misplaced some of the notes in all transparency. Even here on the show, I mentioned that, because I tend to be transparent with everybody. But what I couldn't forget was just how potent you are, and how potent the connection was. Our fire, we had fire that day. I remember it's rising up. We're like, yes, let's go. So, Jessenia, you really have had quite a background. I mean, us light workers, it just seems like there's a sense of I'd love to hear your perspective on this too. But we seem to often, not always, but often draw to us, all kinds of traumatic experiences or energies to us that we deal with. And many of us are sensitive. We're constantly picking up on things. Like I mentioned to you, I got little sleep last night due to things that are happening today. I'm doing a recording with a major name in the industry and everything today. And somebody I'm like, oh my God, I just absolutely is like bending my mind a little bit for whatever reasons. And so we're very sensitive is my point. And then when we actually show up, because we're tuned in, we're more than what people believe we are, like as a collective, like we get it, like deep down inside, we're more aware of that. They start showing up like that, and it's like people say, well, that isn't real, what you're perceiving isn't real, or if you've got a lot of light, people are not at that level of frequency, can maybe try to snake in there and be like, give me that light, I want some of that light, and we're like, I don't feel so good, I don't know why. Yeah, because someone's like snaking in there all the time. They're not doing it maybe consciously, but they're snaking in there with their energy, pulling that out. And we're like, oh, I'm so depleted. And there's so many challenges light worker type of people deal with, and sensitive people, etc. And I know you've had your own paths with that, early in life, like life situations that I don't know what your perspective is. I want to hear it in a minute. but like we get caught up in these situations with family dynamics and whatnot, where we have these players come in, and it's like, oh my God, like, wow, the things that we've experienced, our listeners and you, whether it's abuse or whatever the different things are, but yet we're here still. We're here to maybe transmute that energy or whatever. I don't even know. I'd love to have a conversation about it. So tell us about where you come from. I almost feel like from day one, like you were awake, you're sitting there, okay, we're gonna pull this dimension in and do this and that. So tell us about like what it was like being born, like kind of awake already, like, you know what I mean, like already tuned in.
Well, well, I didn't know I was tuned in. I didn't know I was any different than anybody else.
Right.
I just had no awareness. And I try to explain that to people, that if you have a lot going on internally, like for example, you're hearing things internally, you might hear that inner voice or that thought process or your mind, you think that everybody's doing that because it's happening like on the inside. So a lot of my gifts, visually speaking, and then telepathy, I would see things and communicate with things and get direction, but it wasn't happening on the outside. So I just believed everybody was functioning that way. So I have memories of, seeing angelic beings and being guided and being told things to get me through difficult times. And they definitely were, like I always say, everybody needs just a pinhole of a light somewhere so they know where to go. And I did have a really, really dark childhood. It was essentially a concoction of some of the worst human experiences. There was a lot of violence, a lot of sexual, mental, emotional, physical abuse. My grandparents were pedophiles. My father was a drug dealer, gang member, murderer. And my mother was a victim for a lot of that. And working to get us safe meant being homeless for a little bit, living in subsidized housing, state housing, and shelters, and figuring out how to survive in a world where it kind of felt like everything was collapsing around you all the time. So to get out of those moments, I mean, I remember angels coming down to cover, to protect us, to defend us, to guide us. And one of my sadder memories, I would have to say, is about 5 years old. I remember being in my house and just thinking, I really don't want to be here. There's no reason for it. It just feels too painful. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought I could just leave. And I heard a voice come to me and say, you're going to help a lot of people with what you're doing. You need to be patient. You need to wait. And so I decided, all right, if I'm going to help people, I'll wait, because to me that was really important to do. So I remember thinking, I'm going to wait and figure out what that means. So that was like my little light at the end of the tunnel. And I just kind of waited long enough to figure things out. I did become a teenage mom, and that's kind of like the moment everything else shifted for me. I graduated high school with her there. She was 2 months old, and I was working full time, and it shifted my whole life because I realized that even if I didn't think life was worth living for me, I now had someone who was depending on me to make the most of this. So I went to college for psychology and just like obsessed over trying to be the best version of myself and heal everything that I could possibly heal and face everything I could face. And what ended up happening, I mean, it's hard. The healing process is really freaking hard. I would say it could be the hardest thing you've ever done, but not really, because the hardest thing we've ever done is to stay stuck. That is the most painful place to be. So as hard as it is to do the work, to heal, to face the stuff, it is much easier than just endlessly suffering, And I definitely look at a lot of these moments and memories and times, and I have nothing but love for them and so much compassion for what I have learned. And honestly, I have nothing really but pride for myself for being the person I am today, and still struggle almost remembering how painful it was, because I've been so happy now. And it's, if I could be that little girl and look back at me today, I don't think I would have believed that I had the potential to be this happy, this secure, this, connected. And now I have 6 kids, so it's all about how can I make their lives better? How can I help them? How can I help them be the best version of themselves and elevate? And through the healing process, what ended up happening is I started kind of reclaiming my gift. So I realized that the more I silenced, my panic, my fear, my obsessiveness, my need for control, my anxiety, my depression, at one point I was being diagnosed with lupus because my symptoms were so severe that I felt like I was dying. So as soon as I started healing, all of the symptoms started subsiding. And then suddenly there was just this tranquil clarity, this powerful being. And that being started getting louder and louder and louder, and my gifts started acting like haywire. It was like the amplification was too much to not do something with. And what I now know as a healer and teacher and author is that we don't need that much trauma. Part of my goal with people, part of my responsibility here, I should say, is the deep interdimensional trauma repair and reconstruction of the energy to liberate people into the best version of themselves. I would say we master the thing we are here to teach. I've mastered the life I'm here to help other people work through. So that's my skill set, right? My lifting weights and exercising. And later on, I realized that a lot of people were coming to me struggling, with sexual abuse, emotional abuse, all types. And they thought the one thing they needed to hear first was I've been there and gotten out. And as soon as they heard that, they were open-hearted, open ears, ready to do the work. But until they heard that, you have no idea what I've been through. So it's amazing, but I get it. It's impossible to take advice from someone who hasn't been to the depths of where you are or where you feel in that deep loneliness and that deep victimization and that deep pain. It's impossible to believe it can be done unless it's done. And I still get that today where people are like, how? And so that's a lot of what I do is I work through that and I help people with that, but I do it on an interdimensional level, which is we clear the deep traumatized past lives too. And then we train gifts and work to elevate and understand gifts. Spirit explained to me now that the reason why, like you were saying earlier, the reason why so many spiritual people have these traumatic events is that the brain is naturally self-preserving. So it's essentially me, until there's some outside trauma that shatters that. And essentially trauma is that. What happens when we are afraid of our abuser is we actually start intuitively pulling into and reading and predicting their behavior to save ourselves. Right? So that we need to know how they think, what upsets them, what's going on with them. And we develop such a strong emotional comprehension of them as an individual that we can preserve ourselves. So it becomes an intuitive boot camp. Now that's a violent and archaic way to do that. The idea is hopefully we get to a place where children are born in a world where we can openly tap into the fact that we have gifts right away. We could feel safe expressing them, connecting to them, using them, and protecting others and ourselves with them. But because we don't have that yet, we use the shatter technique, which is a technique I signed up for when I planned my life because I knew that that was my mission here and my goal here. And it doesn't mean that all of the things that happened to me were chosen. We do have to understand that traumatized people traumatize others, and that can be unpredictable. We do have free will. So I always like to remind myself that we are conductors of energy. And if I've been given pain, I conduct pain until I repair it and become a conductor of love. So that is the transition I had to take on through all my self-repair. So when we are conducting pain, we can be very unpredictable because we're essentially coming from a wounded, explosive, triggered place. So it doesn't mean that I signed up for the extreme of the violence I endured. It means that people, regardless of the plan they create, function through their pain, and that can create unpredictable, unpreceded violence that exists here, which is why healing and gifts and integration and education are so super important, because the more we have that, the less explosive and unpredictable people become. So essentially the less violence that continues through Earth.
Do you want to meditate and make money? Let it be simple. Let it be easy. Let it be fun. Go to yoursacredpurpose.com and get your free Meditate, Make Money meditation today. I'm using some terms too that I want to flesh out for me and the audience as well. But yeah, that's amazing, everything you're sharing. Yeah, I mean, there are so many people, you're right, that's so great, you're such a gift. I mean, because there are so many people in those type of situations where the whatever it is, from family, I remember working with a client once. They worked for their family, and they were living in a house their family bought for them, and it was like they couldn't do anything. Like you're with us. You can't ever leave us. And they're adults, like you can't ever leave us, and everything you do is stupid or something like that. I forget the specifics, but this is someone I worked with in the past, and I just remember that whole scenario, and it was like, it's impossible. There's no way I could ever get out. And if I leave, they literally kidnap me and bring me back and all this stuff. And I just challenged the belief. I mean, in that case, I just challenged the belief. I says, I don't believe that, because I'm taking a stand. I was like, Archangel Mike, or whatever, like, oh, boom, this isn't going to happen anymore. And through the work that we did, like, I just remember, like, I'm remembering this, as I haven't talked about this one in a while, but I just remember, like, not only was she able to go away, she did so with their blessing. Like, okay, yeah, actually, it's great. Okay, go do your thing. Like, that's how dramatic the change can be. Now, you may think you're complete, like, this person literally would be kidnapped and be brought back. Like, they forcibly would basically bring her back. So if someone like that can break free, and you have way more stories than I do, what you've helped people do, but like, I'm saying, like, if that's possible, in your case, and in the case I just brought up, it's possible. It doesn't mean it's easy. It doesn't mean, wow, just snap your fingers, you're going to make it happen instantly all the time. No, but we want to give you hope. That's all. We just wanted to bring you loving compassion and hope, and then give you, I believe, and I'm talking for you a little bit here, but give you the strength, that inner strength that you do have, that you are infinitely powerful. And once you realize that, you're infinitely valuable and worthwhile and loved, that you can break free of any situation or scenario. Really, you can. It's doable. It's completely doable. And so I really love, everything you shared. There's so much we could dive into. But that alone is a big one. Now, you talked about, I did want to clarify some terms before we go further, so people understand. You talk about interdimensional. Now, I think I kind of know what you mean by that, but, like, I don't want to assume my definition is the same as yours. So you talked about interdimensional healing and trauma and whatnot. And then you talked about being, the shattered term you brought out. So I just wanted to clarify some of these terms. Yeah.
Yes. So, and I'm not saying that, like I said, I'm not saying that we need to suffer to the depths that I have suffered. I specifically chose that mission because I use it in my work every day, and I'll explain more about that. But what I mean by the outside shattering is the mind is incredibly self-obsessed by nature. Its only job really is to create a perspective of our environment for survival, right? So it says this relates to me, that relates to me, this relates to me, that relates to me. So we could all be in the same room and have a very different experience because our mind processed it that way. Now, connection is what Spirit calls with me this interspecies connection that most people are supposed to have, is what we call hive consciousness. And every species has their own hive consciousness, but it's been disrupted with all the trauma and violence and, disaster on Earth. So essentially, we have to hack it and find other ways to get through it. So instead of becoming predatory to one another and defensive, we have to become open to evaluating another's experience and being proactive. So it's like martial arts of the mind, right? We've got to tap in and understand this is their emotion, this is why they're doing it, this is what's coming next. We have to predict the unpredictable, which is how they feel, their emotional body, which leads to explosive behavior or trauma or more abuse. So essentially, we're processing outside of ourselves. And that's not the end goal, because what happens is people in trauma, people who suffer extreme abuse, if they don't heal, they sometimes end up being the abuser. And I've seen this cycle even in my own life, where I have but moved out of really abusive relationships and trusted nobody and was very controlling and thought that healing meant watching people's phones, being intense with people, saying, you can't do this and you can't do that because I won't allow it. Meanwhile, I'm just now the abuser. I'm controlling the situation because I can't control myself. I can't understand my pain. So I had, the bad part is that after the tragedy or the trauma really shatters us, we need to heal the nervous system. And if we don't heal the nervous system, then we will be paranoid. We will be nervous. We will pull in negative messages from our environment, and we stay stuck in inability or incapability. So our gifts stay very, very, very limited. This is where a lot of people are like, how can you tell the difference between anxiety and a message or a vision? Visions and anxiety are nothing alike, but you can't tell because your nervous system is so deregulated that it's just consuming all of them, right? So it's hard for you. So the goal there is first heal enough to be calm and cool with yourself, so you really can just listen to spirit and you're not confused. Now, when you're calm or neutral most of the time, emotionally, mentally, non-reactive, you definitely know when you're just being panicked or picking something up because your whole energetic body shifts. That doesn't happen during spiritual messages, right? You just know it to be true, and then you get direction. So it's not like, I am panicking, I'm nervous, am I going to be burglarized? Is that person parked in front of the car because they're here for me? Are they watching me? There's no paranoia. There's a, hey, call the police, someone's outside. Get the kids in a room, if that were to happen. And so I've had lots of very clear warnings from spirit that have saved me, my kids, protected us. None of it came from cycles of paranoia. It was very clear. I didn't have any reaction in my body. They just said, do this now. And I said, okay, on it. And, the thing happened and the kids were fine. We were all good. So they warn us. And sometimes something happens and I leap up to do something and they're like, sit back down and calm down. They're fine. They need to work through it. They need to learn their lesson. And I'm just like, okay, I'll just let them come to me. So the lessons can go both ways, but that part is huge, that we have to heal the nervous system, because if we are not in control of our energy, we are not in control of the message, we are not in control of our gifts, we're not in control of what's happening, then we can become victims, continued victims to other people, which acts like you said, gift siphoning, hosing, pulling on my energy, making demands of my time, abusing my kindness, taking from me, right? All of that happens because we didn't heal the wound. That's a trauma response. So right. The more we heal, the stronger we get. I also point out to people that the best form of spiritual protection is healing. If I am someone who has a lot of triggers and is very emotionally explosive, when somebody comes at me, I'm very easy to control, right? Because they can say anything and it's going to get me wired up. It's going to get me super reactive. I'm pouring a bunch of energy back at them. We're having a fight now. I am angry. I'm upset. My energy's a mess. Now, if I healed all of that, it wouldn't matter what they said. It would not affect me at all. I would just say, wow, I'm sorry you're having a bad day, but I'm going to go about my day. And I am at that place now, which, I wouldn't have believed that 5 years ago. I just wouldn't believe it was possible. And the idea is there's no one who can control my energy when I'm healed and secure in it, right? And when I'm not, I can be manipulated, and that leads for energetic intrusion or energetic inefficiency. And it does mean I can be attacked energetically, just like I'm allowing myself to be physically attacked.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to dive into there. So, rich conversation. When we build up that fear, anxiety, paranoia, and we could say like, I'm so psychic and tuned, and I know exactly when things are going to happen and everything. And then, like you said, like, actually you're just paranoid sometimes. Like, I know they're getting into trouble on that phone. I know, whatever those ideas, especially as, protective parents, like after all the things we've experienced, or the dangers that we sense might be out there based on our past. Like, we all have our different stories. We've all felt trapped or victimized or, traumatized in some way, right? I mean, I think sometimes we, like you've got, big stuff. You go, oh my God, I could just write books of what happened, this day, and then you probably you maybe run into people like me. I'll be like, this one kid, he was mean to me. He like killed a plant. He killed my plant. And I can almost never forgive him. Like, I can forgive him now, but like, but as a point, like, I could almost never forgive him. Like he killed me that day. And then of course goes to past lives, it's all this other stuff, really.
Oh,
But like,
that's the interdimensional part. Yeah, the past life part. Yeah.
okay, so that's where the interdimensional stuff comes in. Because the response for me is way over exaggerate some of the things that were traumatizing to me versus what was happening in the moment. Like other kids would be like, yeah, sad at that time, I guess, but I didn't care about it afterwards, right? Like for me, as like, oh my God, this is the end of my life, or I want to kill them now. Like if they ever do that again, wait till they see what's gonna happen. Things like that.
You know why we do that, and that's really important, because that's a really important part of so there's two different things here on it. Well, lots of different things,
Sure,
right?
sure.
Morbid introspection is the idea that we are forcing pain to the surface because we need pain to feel comfortable. That's different than pulling up a belief system attached to an emotion and then tracing that. I teach that process with my students, and I call it emotional mapping. What happens is when something surfaces, what I have learned is every emotion is real, every single one. Even if you think you're overreacting, you're not. It's tied to something. You have to say, that's a weird reaction. I need to learn more about that. We take that back into study. We emotionally map it. We figure out where it's coming from, where it originated, what chakra it's attached to, how deep it went, if it's interdimensionally connected, which would be the past life part, the soul level part. And then we really deeply go into a self-repair process, and it stops being reactive. Suddenly we don't have that surface emotion triggering the deeper wound or exposing the deeper wound. So I call that emotional mapping. But yes, it starts with first understanding the validity of our feelings. And that's why we're so hypersensitive. We're hypersensitive because we're feeling everything, this life and all of our experiences. We're interdimensional beings. So there is no such thing as overreactive. It's an important reaction to understand, to dive into, and to clear. And the worst thing we do as human beings is we try to control or suppress our emotions. We just kind of shove it all back there and we think, well, that doesn't make sense. That's out of pocket. That's not relevant. I'm not allowed to do that. I don't want to be bullied. I don't want to cry. I don't want to be embarrassed. We just keep burying it. And those are all those blocks, energetic blocks, deep soul level blocks. So it gets worse and worse and worse. And that's where the explosiveness comes in. It can also trigger mental health issues. Like, we have personality splits. We can have, what's the other one that I've seen come through with people? Multiple personality disorder, bipolar disorder. We can have a lot of things surface from something like that eventually if it becomes too repressed and compressed and violent. It's like, the longer we hold the beast down, the stronger it gets. The shadow can only be healed with light. So it's about exposing that, getting it out there and facing it. So I bring out the part about the morbid introspection because a lot of people on, the beautiful worldwide internet are diving deep into self-repair or shadow work, but only coming out more miserable. And if you're coming out more miserable, you're not doing it right. That's so important. Yeah. It can be very, very dangerous for the individual. That can trigger depression and a whole bunch of other issues. And so the idea is, if you're not feeling better, then it might be time to get help or get support or have an advisor, because that can be very dangerous. You should absolutely always feel better and learn something from the experience, not get trapped in that cycle. And what I mean when I say interdimensional is, not only do I help people heal trauma in this life, some of it is I can see memories, I can see people's thoughts, I can see their energetic blocks. And what I found very early on is the chakras look like little onions. And if you go into the onions, you'll see layers of all their lives. So at each life, the chakras store information. They're informational storage centers. So we have themes, right? Like heart's relationship, which also means it's blocked by grief. It's blocked by guilt. So if I'm going into somebody's heart chakra, and let's say they have 700 lives, it's 700 layers of experiences that need repair. And what I find is, this is actually tethered to a past life experience. And we go to the origin of the wound. And that's where the record comes forward. We go find records and pull up the life and clear and heal the life. And now we're interdimensionally repairing the soul, which also creates a really powerful, what we would see as like a Kundalini repair or awakening that is incredible. It's like, I mean, it's intense. It can be painful because we have stagnant energy moving for the first time in sometimes 700 lives. So it's powerful and intense and can create a sense of like discomfort at first. And then after that, we're clear and feel really great. So that's what I mean by the interdimensional part, because we go into these past lives, which aren't necessarily here right now in this particular dimension, but we understand the pattern, the storyline, the repeat, the emotions, the wounds, and we clear it for the person. And there's always a sense of like familiarity, or, yo, I thought that was my character. Yeah, I recognize that part of myself. I recognize I still do that today. I just thought that was who I am. I didn't realize it was coming from like a limiting belief system. One of the things that's really important about shadow work is when we're going to heal our inner child, this is what you were saying, like the way we program information, most of our brain patterns are established, our belief systems, our thoughts are established before the age of 7. And in that time frame, we take everything personally. By nature, we believe the world revolves around us, right? So our parents divorced, it was my fault. Somehow I did something to affect their whole relationship and destroyed their lives. And then we go back as 30-year-old adults and we realize that's not even how relationships work. And so we go back to that memory and we now correct it with this, wait a minute, you were carrying the weight of your parents' success in marriage that wasn't even yours to carry. We're going to correct that. The brain loves logic, but it didn't have that when you were 7. So
Right.
we can give that now and correct the misprogram, right? We can correct the belief system and stop functioning it. So that's the power of going back to rewrite the story in a way that liberates us. And sometimes it's enough to just bring conscious awareness to that belief system that wasn't real, like someone killing your plant. It may feel very personal, like, how dare they, that was so cruel, they were so mean. And when we're older, we might be like, well, that boy had a really bad life. He struggled a lot. He didn't have friends. He struggled communicating. He was bullied all the time. Like, he was just angry. That had nothing to do with me or my plant, and we correct it and we find compassion where we once had anger or misinformation.
Right. Well, then you also have your past life intersects with those people as well. So it goes deeper. It reminds me, I just read, so today someone says, what movies could I watch that are like Matrix, the Matrix movie and stuff like that? And I mentioned Doctor Strange, and then I also mentioned Cloud Atlas, if you've ever seen that movie. But it's a really fast, if you haven't seen it, I recommend everybody watch it, because it really shows like that with the past lives and everything. Like, okay, like they would show scenes and like they're like how everything's happening all at once, right? So it's like, hopefully most listeners know about this, but like everything's time's the illusion, right? Everything's just happening and it's happening all at once. So when you're in a moment, like you're like, oh my god, like whatever, or I'm gonna kill them all, I'm gonna hang them from the trees or whatever, that's coming probably not from this life, but almost 100%, right? But it's coming from a past life where you literally, maybe your soul is still in that moment, hanging somebody from a tree, caught up in that moment because you haven't, dealt with that, right? So we and it's all happening at once. And anyway, that movie is cool because it shows that sort of stuff, which is very illuminating to see in film. And anyway, but my point is that you're right. I mean, like, it's not an overreaction. You're right. I mean, it's perfectly, of course, I get that. It's just, that's the word I use. But I was just trying to say, like, more than what somebody else might respond to that situation based on their journey, right? And what's been happening in their perception. So, yeah, wow, you've got like a lot to share. So yeah, I've definitely with the chakras and everything, and yeah, I've been a teacher for that and have trained a lot of people. And like you talked about with the 700 lives and everything, and it's endlessly fascinating, really. I mean, we step out of the pain and the toughness of a human life, but we just look at it like it's pretty fascinating, these experiences. And there are different perspectives. Like some people will say, okay, don't tell me about, you're a victim to your parents. You chose them, damn it. You signed up for this. And like, I mean, most people are more compassionate than that if it's especially a really bad situation to say it like that, especially.
There's a lot to that I wish people would understand.
Yeah,
And the
that's why I'm bringing it up.
compassionate,
I
yeah.
want you to talk to that. Like when people say that, well, you signed up for it. It's all in the contract.
And there's probably a good 100 or something pages in there of just life planning and the depth and intricacy of the life planning process in the Akashic realm. And I've learned that reading people's soul level jobs. So it's the job they play when they're not here. So they can be strategists, life planners, astrologists. They help people pick their genetic codes, their genetic reflection, spirit guides. There's this beautiful, really intricate process. And it takes billions of souls to plan this very individual life. But we have free will. So when we say we chose the person, it doesn't mean you chose everything that person did to you. And there are absolutely things that happened to us that went outside of the plan that were extreme, violating tragedies. And it is so severe that, I also talk about it in my book, that there's something we call karmic imputation, which is that when someone has suffered such extreme violence and abuse that there really is no reason or lesson or thing in it to find. It's just pain. It's just deep soul level suffering. So what spirit does in a situation like that is it gets evaluated in the Akashic realm in trial, and essentially they come to the agreement or disagreement that it can be worked out or understood, or they amputate, which means it is safely severed from the master soul of that individual so that it could be properly treated and healed, so it no longer causes anybody else connected to that pain. And there absolutely are circumstances like that because Earth is so unpredictable. And this is, the concept of like generational trauma. When I was healing my own wounds, I came to realize that like my grandparents weren't even my villains, that villains were kind of an illusion of the experience, and that they were products of abuse and they were products of abuse. And it went all the way back to when Spain inhabited Puerto Rico and started raping and pillaging and destroying family dynamics and creating trauma. But that comes from Spain, and that had another story to it. So what it comes down to is there's no origin of it, but I will be the solution to it. Right. So if we get really good with it, we realize there's no such thing as a villain. We're humans experiencing the human experience. And if we keep pushing the blame, we will stay continuously trapped. We will be just like them and them and them and them. Or we choose to do things different. We choose to conduct love. We choose to be the cycle breaker for our children so that they no longer have a story to tell. And that to me was so much more important. And that's the day I really decided, like, all I want is love and forgiveness. So that's something I have to create, because I'm not going to find it looking for someone to blame. And that really shook me. Because I think in my life, even, it's really easy to be like, my dad was an abuser, a violator, an addict. My grandparents were pedophiles, and that's just, they ruined my life. They ruined me. But when I went into my dad's story, I found a lot of really terrible pain, sexual abuse, violations, abandonment, trauma. When I went into my grandparents' story, it was severe. It was more severe than what they had done. So even though they were violent people, they were better than the generation before them. And I was surprised that they could have been that way, knowing what they went through. And that shook me. And I realized, that hurt people, but I don't need to continue the pattern, and that released how I felt about the past and about the judgment and about the blame and about the victim mentality. And I kind of just decided it's okay that it happened to me, but I'm going to decide what happens next. I won't be held in that cycle, in that loop. I won't let it control me anymore. I'm going to have love for their experience.
Mhm.
And I would say this because people, it's never forced. Forgiveness is never forced. You can't force forgiveness. Forcing somebody to say I forgive everybody, blah blah, is not going to heal anybody. It has to be deeply considered and understood and decided upon really deeply from the heart. And it is a release, meaning that we forgive. There is really nothing but love there. So I just point that out because a lot of people use forgiveness as a weapon for people who've been abused or struggled. And I think that that's a dangerous thing to do.
Let's talk about that. So how is forgiveness in some cases used as a weapon in those cases? So tell me more about that.
Well, like we say it's the person's problem. We'll say it's the victim's problem, meaning like it's your fault because you haven't forgiven. It's time to let it go. It's time to release it. So we try to force the forgiveness process, not realizing that that's the absolute opposite of forgiveness. That's repression.
Right.
Expressing how we feel and burying it deep within us and pretending that we feel a way we don't is not a solution. We have to target the actual problem enough to repair it, correct it, where forgiveness becomes a natural side effect of the healing. That someday we just wake up and have no emotional attachment to the pain and realize I understand now. And not only do I understand, but I'm so grateful for the person that I've become that I wouldn't even take it back. I am so proud of who I am, my character, my personality, my drive, my focus, my love, my compassion, that I wouldn't change any of that because I know where it came from. And it came from the lessons I learned healing from that depth.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, like, and again, I go back to that plant, and there's more with this kid than that. There's much more to the story than that, which I already picked up on. But you know, what I've learned about that, and I still think there's 5 or 10% I'm still digesting on it still, on that healing with that whole situation. And I think part of it for me, in that case for me was he was showing up as my shadow. I mean, he was showing up as the shadow, right? Like you can be kind of tough and stir things up, and you know um I don't seem that way to some people at first, but then if you start getting more intimate and working with me as your coach or something, like it may come out like, okay, this is the way it is. I'm not like traumatizing people, but I'm just like, not usually, hopefully, but usually it's really good. They're like, yeah, that was helpful. And just telling truth, right? Just like, this is what the situation is, this is a kind of
Right, so
thing.
he was like a strength trainer, right? He was like
Exactly.
your
Like,
workout coach,
like,
your
yeah, you're too
yeah.
soft, you're too like watery, and I'm the nice guy and everything. Come on, strengthen up, sharpen up. That's what he's really there to show me. And it's really just been a hell of a journey to get there. Like, I go to reunions and this kid's there, and I still feel like, well, maybe I'll have a go at him now, like, it's crazy. Decade old, right? It's like,
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, what? I know why it's so deep. I know, but we won't get into it maybe today. But past lives and all that stuff. But it's just, yeah. I mean, literally, like, maybe you've had this experience with those things that would sound like much bigger traumas that you've dealt
Well,
with.
even with something like that, I think the point is, even when you bring it up, it's a sense of feeling powerless. You felt
Yeah.
powerless. And so a piece of you is still stuck in that loop where you feel powerless when he's around, when he's remembered, when the story is remembered, you still feel powerless. So the idea is, why do you believe he had power over you?
Mhm.
And you have to work to
I could tell you about that. Yeah, I could tell you about that in the multiple levels. So I remember he was a kid that, obviously had a lot of problems at home. I mean, like, it's pretty obvious, like, if you're tuning in right now, right? So, but he was held back a grade, right? So, and before, my mind tells me everything was fine in my life until this kid showed up in our class. And before me and him ever had any issues, we actually were friends. Like, we were friends in the classroom, at least. Oh yeah, we're jokesters, or we're doing, throwing papers at the teacher or whatever. I don't know, different things we did. I can't remember. But we were kind of, and the reason why I befriended him, because intuitively I knew, like, this guy is a problem, is what I said in my mind at the time. Psychically, I was just like, oh, he's changing the whole dynamic of our group, this class. I can feel it's happening. He's not good. And like, and it was there, and I was like, and I just know, sort of consciously even, I was like, I wasn't doing actions, but I was like energetically already wanting to protect everybody. I need to protect everybody. So I better befriend him, and let's distract him. Let's keep it, what can we do? Put up the shields, and then before you know it, like, once I stopped being, I wanted to break the cycle of like playing along with him to placate the bully, or the tyrant, sort of, in a way, energetically at a minimum. Then that day when I made that decision, it was like, like I felt like unleashed the devil in him, like, ah, you're gonna go down, right? And this, I'm sure, is like what he experienced, right? You don't listen to me, you'll see what happens, right? And so this is what came my way, and it was very mild. I mean, compared, I'm sure, to what he's experiencing in his life, right? But to me, it was like big stuff, like, oh my God, like it just triggered this huge reaction. Like, I can't trust people, I can't trust life, like this foundational thing. And then that perpetuated itself through different scenarios in my life. And but yeah, that's what that was. So I forget your original question now.
No,
Anyway,
so that's a really great example. So I explain this to people all the time because I was trying to explain to people, and the theory is that a lot of people on social media, on the World Wide Web, don't understand that we attract what we are. And it's kind of like, it's not necessarily a direct attraction, but it attracts something we believe to be true. And I try to explain this to people. So I was in an abusive relationship pattern, right? And it doesn't mean that I'm asking for abuse, but somehow I continued attracting the same exact person over and over and over, maybe a little less, a little less, a little less. And I finally had to face myself and say, what are you doing? What are you doing that you're in a room of 300 people choosing the same person over and over and over and over again? And it wasn't that I was going out there wearing violate me, right? That's not the point at all. But what happened was I was socially groomed and abused and taught and rewarded in predatory behavior, meaning like I was made a victim because that's what parents do. When your parent is an abuser, it needs a victim, and you are healthier and safer if you pick up victim mentality and mindset, which is I'm always in danger. I'm always on high alert. I'm always in angst. I need to be used to being abused. I need to be comfortable with abuse. So what happened was all of those belief systems continued calling in abusers and calling in abuses. And I was compliant to it because I didn't know I was doing it. And
yeah.
now that I've healed all that, it's fascinating. I could look at someone miles away and say they're getting abused because they're wearing it. They're wearing it in the way they slouch their shoulders, in the way they don't look you in the eye, in the way that they are always on the ground, the way that they twiddle their fingers, the way that they're anxiously breathing, the way that they hide on the side when people are speaking, the way that they don't feel comfortable communicating. They're showing you I am a victim. And so a predator will prey. A predator will spot that one person, a group of 500, and they will say, that's my victim. They're not going to go after the confident person who's going to call them out and stick up for themselves. That's humiliating. A lot of predators function on high ego, right? They think I'm strong, I'm powerful, I'm the most powerful person in this room, and I need to prove it. Mm-hmm. So we attract predators by accident, right? Because we've been comfortable being prey. And there's a sense like that's a very instinctual animalistic response system. Animals have the same ability that when they sense a predator, they know that, and they can run. So it goes both ways. And when a predator senses prey, they know, they get into position and they start tracking prey. So we have this weird program, even if we don't understand it consciously anymore, but it's deeply embedded in the way we respond and in our body language. And any body language expert can tell when someone has been violated sexually, was physically abused, or is afraid. They're carrying it everywhere, and they're speaking it in everything that they say and in the way that they even look at people. Mm-hmm. So I realized I'm showing up like this, and I didn't even know I was showing up like this. So I started correcting those behaviors and finally stopped the pattern. I've never had a situation happen since then because I was able to correct those or reconstruct that. So the idea is the second that this boy started threatening your world, you became prey. Mm-hmm. And established this dynamic of I'm in danger and I'm prey. And then he establishes a dynamic of I can control this boy, and that's my job because that's my source of power now. And then that only gets worse, of course, and worse and worse and worse until somebody breaks the cycle or we have adult support, because kids really tie their identity, obviously, like we said, abuse. So if there's outside abuse, it doesn't matter how much that little boy's life is shattered with the you sticking up for yourself. He's still being abused. You're still going to be prey. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's going to be a conductor of the pain he's facing at home. He's going to need an outlet to express that. That's why outside support or adult support is so helpful when adults know what to do. It's fascinating to me how archaic our school system still is. And most of them are just like, oh, go to suspension. None of them are ever considering my favorite belief is that no child misbehaves for no reason. There's always a reason. Children are so pure. If that child is going to school, violating people, screaming at people, beating people up, there are horrible things happening at home. And I wish somebody would go figure it out, but we don't. We punish the child. We punish the child for being punished at home. We punish the child for carrying pain. We punish the child for how they treat other people, when we should be educating and helping and supporting whatever's happening and figuring it out. So that would be ideal, but it doesn't happen. So instead we have people be abused, and we have bullies, and we have violence, and we have pain, and we have trauma, you know, and that's sad. But the whole thing is healing. We do the work and we become pillars for others to show them how.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. I mean, yeah, I'm sure I did feel very threatened, you know, in that situation. So I felt like, you know, whether it was real or not, who knows, but I felt like, oh, I'm one of these popular kids, kind of, you know, before this kid showed up. And then I felt like, ooh, there's a threat. Like, he's got this magnetism and power, and like he's he's disrupting the ecosystem. Like, that's not obviously the words I would have used as a kid, but like was the vibe, you know. And okay, we how are we going to deal with this? I don't know. I mean, I better make friends with him, right? And I did. I sensed like he's going to influence the kids. He's going to have them change their lives in ways that aren't good, and I don't want that to happen. And then maybe I can influence him, and I got, you know, this whole thing, and then before you know it, yeah, it's like, and I'm trying to give myself some grace, because sometimes maybe, I don't know if I beat up on myself, but it's almost like, what's wrong with you? It shouldn't have. I still, even though I get it, it's like part of me says, what's wrong with you? Why did you ever let that bother you so much as a kid? Like, why was that even such a big? But when I think about it, is if you think you're constantly in danger every single day at school, you don't know what's going to happen, and you don't trust the situation. You don't even trust yourself, because you don't know how you'll act, because you're having violent thoughts towards that kid. Like literally, I would imagine myself pounding him like into the ground, like, and not stopping. Like, and it's like in the movies, they just sometimes they just keep punching and they don't stop. Like and even much worse. But like that's because I was trying to be. I wanted to be safe, right? So I'm like, okay, I'll be the biggest monster you've ever seen. Like, so this whole thing, and so that they got created, and then it's like, even though it wasn't really needed every day, I don't know, right? Like, so I try to give myself. Hopefully it's going to be helpful to the listeners. Like, I'm sure other people have had that sort of experience in their own way. And it's like, just give myself some grace. Like, well, you didn't know when the next bomb was going to come. I mean, kind of thing. I don't know. It's so yeah, just looking back at that, it's helpful what you're saying. And just in that, okay, just remember, like, you're on high alert. But it helped you hone, you know, your gifts. You know, you're considered one of the most tapped in people, you know, that most people know. Like, they're like, oh my God, like, I just had someone hire me the other day. Like, I don't trust anybody else on the planet to do this work except you. And because of the tapped inness that I have. And, you know, I developed that probably in part during that time, like constantly, all right, what's happening? What's the atmosphere? What's going on? You know, and similar to your situation, but not as extreme, obviously. So, yeah, but it's interesting how everything really can be a gift, can it?
Yeah. Have you talked to him? Have you written him a letter or tried to reach out to tell him how you felt when you were
I
young?
haven't directly done it. I've done letters where you do your own letters and stuff and things like that, but no, I haven't. I know some of the kids that you know, because I wasn't the only person, obviously. I know some of the kids have talked to him. He's like, "Oh, I didn't mean anything by it." That's how he has treated it with some of the other people, I guess, who have talked to him. Um, so yeah, I'm open to your suggestions, though.
Well, I mean, to me, when you say that it's still coming up and you still are attached to it, I would say that it's because you still feel like you struggle speaking your truth, and you still feel like you struggle knowing your power and knowing your voice. And until you find that, you're going to keep feeling like he took it from you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the work there would be establishing that in the present and knowing for a fact that you have that and you feel secure in that and that you're utilizing that. So it means looking at your current life and seeing where you feel like your voice is missing, where you haven't been defending yourself, or you haven't been speaking up for yourself, or where you feel like you've been taken advantage of or feel powerless, right? So it's looking around you and saying, where have I not reclaimed my power presently? Because I'm still going back to that moment. I'm still responding in it.
Right. Right. Yeah. Looking at all my relationships in my life, and just looking at like how that might be playing out still today. Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's very illuminating. It's very illuminating.
And then
It's just,
correct it. And as you correct it, you realize he doesn't have your power anymore. You're
right.
not tied to it anymore because you freed yourself of it here in the present.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I feel I'm close. I feel I'm close, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just, but this is good. So that's what I always say. I always bring the exact podcast, guests that I need, on the show. Always works out that way. So we're getting to a place where we need to start wrapping up for today, but we got so much more to share. Usually I do a couple of downloads with for our guests, so we're going to do that in just a short while, if that's okay by you. I think we did talk about it, but if we didn't, we don't need to do it. But anyway, Jessenia, I know you help with all these things. If you can handle these tough cases, you can deal with all kinds of different trauma and things that people are going through. Can you tell them more about how you help and where they should go to check you out, hire you, whatever they want to do?
Well, my website, JesseniaNozzolillo.com, is the best place to find all of my services. I am on social media as Soul Architect Jessenia. I have my majority of my followers are on Facebook. I have about 100,000 there. So it's a big community. What I've been doing, I only work with a handful of people a year. On the one-on-ones, I've been working on educating in classes, and I have a group for shadow work and self-repair and self-reflection on Discord. And then I have my live group coaching that I do via Zoom twice a month. So all of that information is on my website. The live group coaching is really fun because it's about an hour and a half of education, or, an hour 15 of education. And then we do the 30-45 minutes of Q&A. So people get the chance to come on and ask questions. And that's a nice option for people, because I am so limited with my clients for the year. So I love that option for everybody. And then you can be part of the Discord community too. So it's like a tier system. And it's a really fun way to be active, to learn, to be a part of the community, to ask questions, to continue their own personal growth. I'm thinking about adding a raffle like session option to that too. I just haven't yet. So
Okay.
website is the best place. That's usually what I'm up to.
Yeah, your creation book that's here on the video for people that are watching through video, and it's got all kinds of stuff, all that Akashic record information, and so much more. So definitely check that out as well. And so yeah, as we're wrapping up, Jessenia, I'd like to get a couple of, I know you're a huge downloader, obviously. So, but I do a couple of downloads for our guests. It's just a fun thing we do. And are you ready to receive a couple of downloads that I might have to share with you today?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. So here we go. Interesting. I'm getting shown like a princess kind of situation. It almost seems British, seems British to me. Maybe something else, but I just get I get like this celebrity vibe. It feels past life-ish. So I feel like if it's the feeling of like yeah, like you're continuing to pull some of the power and energy you had in that moment into this life, it feels like. So just noticing that, because the way the picture is being shown, it looks similar to how you look now, but different. And then yeah, very radiant, beautiful. Yeah, there's a radiance in your energy that's just extra, maybe a little extra, and they're energetically. So like I feel, and then there's just a grace, there's a richness, like you're very wealthy, and you get what you want, but that lifetime it feels there's manipulation, like, oh, I could turn them any way I want. And so you've got, maybe you pull back from some of that, like persuasiveness that you have potentially, so in this life, because you overdid it. Anyway, so I'm just noticing that. Okay, so I just share what comes through. I'm not attached to what people feel, if it's true or not. I just share what comes through. One more download. There's just tons with someone like you. There's so much going on. Okay, well, yeah, just seeing the energy, you probably can go see what I'm doing sometimes. Okay, but yeah, you've got that big throat chakra energy, so that's really good. Some of it still seems it's wanting to tune higher. Like I see the higher planes wanting to infuse itself inside that throat chakra, but you've got like this big voice to share in the world. Some of the heavier, not to judge it, make it dark and horrible, but like just as darker, lower vibrations, heavier vibration is in the throat and the lower throat especially. So what I'm saying is, there's a lot of, there's still a lot of I feel there is a level of protection still. So especially there in that lower, in your throat, in the lower throat is what I'm saying, and down in your chest to some there. So what's that telling me? Yeah, just just more infusion of light and whatnot through the throat. Yeah, just quick downloads I'm doing today, but to just say, like, you are a badass on a mission too. Like me, you're a badass on a mission for the light, and you're here to help people realize how beautiful and amazing they truly are, and to really claim their truth, their sovereignty, and to come back home into the power and love that they are, and much more. But anyway, so yeah, just a couple downloads. Just wanted to share a couple of things with you today.
Thank you. It's really interesting.
Okay, cool. All right. So did one or more things resonate for you, or remind you of something?
I mean, I know that there's things I can't share publicly right
Right.
now, so I think that that's makes sense. There's a
Oh,
lot,
okay.
it's very deeply connected to my heart.
Great.
So I've been struggling with that because I'm a very transparent person and
Yeah.
I pride myself on that. But I have been working through stuff I'm not a lot, like I just
Yeah.
can't openly
Yeah.
share. So a lot, like I said, a lot of my journey has been talking about my experience and helping people through it and being very open and transparent with that. So it has been weird for me to have to hold stuff back like that. And I mean, I have seen a lot of my past lives, and it's not a shock. I feel like I've seen a lot that could have been connected to what you were seeing and talking about. So that makes sense. I have had a couple come up that a lot of the goals I'm supposed to do in this life are very deeply tethered. So they kind of showed me, like, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do that. And it was, to me, kind of like a reminder that I have to stay focused on the stuff I have to do, that it's been made clear to me.
Nice. Okay, good. All right, well, wonderful. So I just quickly just want to let everybody know, if you want to check me out, go to yoursacredpurpose.com and get your free meditate, make money meditation. Start downloading the energy of money abundance and get your downloads. And I always say, do it the easy way. Let it be fun. Let it be easy. Do it the, meditate, make money way, because you will be inspired into whatever is next for you. And I do energy scanning consultations, tune into your energy, tune into your business. You can check all that out at Your Sacred Purpose It's yoursacredpurpose.com as well. And I have a Rock Your Sacred Purpose energy scan consultation you can take advantage of as well there as well. So anyway, Jessenia, it's just been a great pleasure to have you on the show. And any last words for the audience?
I feel like I should have thought of that beforehand. I'm just really thankful to have this discussion, and I'm really excited to be able to share that with everybody. And I just hope that, you know, there's something that maybe people learned that they feel like they can use for their own lives. And that's really my only goal in doing all of these, you know. So yeah, nothing too profound, just that I hope they learned something for themselves.
Yeah, I'm sure. I feel like I discovered and learned things in process for sure. So I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good thing. Grateful to have you. Okay, everybody, keep on, like I always say, keep on tuning in. We'll keep on rocking it here at Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Stay tuned for our next upcoming new episodes each Wednesday and Saturday. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review to help us to serve you best. As a reminder, you can get your free Meditate and Make Money meditation at www.yoursacredpurpose.com to rock your sacred purpose. Goodbye for now, everybody.